At a high school, a black boy did everything he could to stay away from the bullies. Move quietly. Don't look at them. Put up with it. That was the only way to get by in a school where the loud, cruel, and untouchable ruled. But no matter how careful he was, every day was the same. He was pushed in the halls, laughed at, his things stolen and thrown on the floor like trash. Then they brought up his father. Then they went too far. That day, he didn't take it. He fought back, and everything changed. Jamal Carter had taught himself to stay small, to be invisible. At Southside High, he moved like a ghost, silent, unnoticed. He knew the rules. Keep your head low. Don't look them in the eye. Don't give them a reason to bother you. For a while, it worked, until it didn't. That afternoon, Jamal left his last class, heading to his locker. Then he heard the voices. "Yo, Carter." Troy Parker's voice was loud, mocking, like he was already laughing at a joke, and Jamal was the punchline. Jamal kept walking, hoping foolishly that maybe they'd leave him alone this time. They never did. A hard shove from behind sent him stumbling. He almost fell but caught himself just in time. Laughter exploded behind him. "My bad," Marcus Hill said, voice fake with pretend sympathy. "Didn't see you there, bro." Jamal took a slow breath, forcing his face to stay blank. He didn't answer. Didn't give them the reaction they wanted. That only made it worse. "Man, he really thinks he can ignore us," Troy smirked, stepping in front of Jamal, blocking his path. Behind him, Eric Sanders and Marcus spread out, trapping him. Troy grabbed Jamal's backpack strap. "What's in here?" "Ha!" Before Jamal could react, Troy yanked it off his shoulder. "Damn, this thing's heavy," Troy said, unzipping it. "What? You carrying bricks?" "Oh, wait. Just a bunch of nerd stuff." He pulled out books and notebooks, then turned the bag upside down, dumping everything on the floor. Jamal's fists tightened as his things scattered. Pens rolling, papers flying. His sketchbook landed open, pages bent. He reached for it, a foot slammed down on the cover. Jamal froze. Troy grinned, pressing his shoe harder into the book. "Oh, you want to pick this up? Go ahead, Carter. Be a good little nerd and clean up your mess." Jamal's hand shook. His chest burned. Around them, students watched. Some whispered. Some recorded with their phones. No one helped. "Hold up," Marcus laughed, kicking one of Jamal's textbooks down the hall like a soccer ball. It hit a locker, pages tearing. "Damn, bro." "I think he needed that," Eric said, grinning. "Oops," Marcus added, smirking. Jamal's fingers twitched. His father's words played in his head. "You wait. You don't start it, but when it starts, you end it." "Not yet. Not yet." He forced the anger down, staying still. "Not yet." Troy crouched, his face too close to Jamal's. "You know, Carter," he said, voice low, "just for him, I was going to let you off easy today, but you keep acting like you're better than us, like you're too good to talk to us, like you think you're something special." Jamal's jaw clenched. "But you ain't," Troy continued, smug. "You're nothing." Just a quiet little nobody hoping someone's going to save you. But guess what? No one's coming, Carter. No one ever does. Jamal looked up, meeting his eyes. For the first time, Troy hesitated just for a second. A flicker of something. Fear, doubt. Then it was gone, hidden behind his usual smirk. Troy stood up straight. Go ahead, pick up your. He stepped back, nodding at the mess on the floor. Marcus and Eric laughed like they'd already won. Jamal took a slow breath. He bent down, grabbing his sketchbook first. He wiped off the dirt, checking for torn pages. He moved carefully, gathering his things without a word. Southside Chicago was a place where strength meant survival, where silence often meant giving up. But for Jamal Carter, silence wasn't weakness. It was a choice. At 16, he was tall but thin, with sharp eyes that hid more than they showed. His clothes were plain, his attitude calm. The wire-framed glasses on his nose made him look more like a quiet student than a fighter. And that was exactly how he wanted it. Because at Southside High, where the tough ruled and the weak suffered, staying unnoticed was the smartest move. Jamal wasn't weak. Far from it. Every morning before sunrise, he trained at the gym with his father, Raymond Carter, a man whose hands showed the marks of many fights. Raymond had once dreamed of being a champion boxer, but life had other ideas. A few bad matches, some fixed fights, and a career that never took off left him running a small boxing gym instead. But that didn't mean he had nothing to teach. In fact, Raymond had learned the most important lesson of all, knowing when to fight and when to walk away. That was the lesson he hammered into his son every day as the steady thud of fists hitting punching bags filled the quiet gym. You're getting faster, Raymond said, watching Jamal throw a sharp 1-2 combo at the bag. His movements were smooth, controlled, but something was off. But you're still holding back. Jamal paused, wiping sweat from his face. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. His father always saw right through him. What's going on? Raymond leaned against the ropes, arms crossed. Something's on your mind. You're fighting like you're carrying a burden. Jamal kept his eyes down, tightening the tape around his hands. Part of him wanted to say it didn't matter, that it was just another normal day. But the words stuck in his throat. His father wouldn't believe him anyway. Raymond always knew when something was wrong. For a second, Jamal thought about shrugging it off. What was the point in talking? Complaining wouldn't fix anything. But then he remembered Troy's laughter, Marcus' mocking grin, the way the whole school just watched, never stepping in, never caring. His hands clenched into fists. He took a slow breath. Finally, he spoke. It's the same thing every day. Troy, Eric, and Marcus never stopped. No matter what Jamal did, they pushed him into lockers, took his things, and talked badly about him. Nobody stepped in. Nobody cared. His father, Raymond, listened quietly, nodding slowly. He didn't cut Jamal off. That was one thing about Raymond, he let Jamal speak without pushing him to say more than he wanted. When Jamal finally looked up, Raymond let out a breath and rubbed his short gray beard. Let me ask you something, Raymond said. What's the most important rule in boxing? Jamal frowned. He knew where this was going. Don't start a fight you can't win. Raymond shook his head. That's part of it. But the real rule, the real lesson, is knowing when to stand up. You don't throw the first punch, but you better throw the last one. You wait until the right moment, until you know they'll never mess with you again. Jamal let those words sink in. His father wasn't telling him to pick fights. He was telling him to finish them, to make sure that when he finally stood up, there would be no next time. No more chances for those who thought he was weak. Jamal nodded, tightening the wraps around his hands. He didn't say anything else, but something inside him changed. The anger and frustration he'd carried for so long felt different now. It wasn't just something to put up with. It was something to get ready for. The next morning, Jamal walked into Southside High like usual, head down, shoulders tense, blending into the crowd. The halls were loud with slamming lockers, squeaking shoes, and bursts of laughter. Just another day. But in the back of his mind, his father's words played on repeat. Wait for the right moment. He didn't know if today was that moment. Maybe tomorrow, maybe next week. But it was coming. As he reached his locker, he felt it. They were nearby. He didn't even need to turn around. Hey, Carter. Jamal didn't react right away. He kept his movements slow, turning his locker combination carefully. Then a hand smacked the back of his head, not hard enough to knock him over, just enough to remind him who was in charge. Don't ignore me, loser, Troy Parker sneered. Jamal took a deep breath before turning to face him. There they were, Troy, grinning like always, Eric standing behind him like a bodyguard, and Marcus, the loudmouth who laughed at his own jokes. You look stressed, Jamal, Marcus said, smirking. Bad night? Or still upset about yesterday? Jamal stayed quiet. He wouldn't give them the reaction they wanted. Troy leaned in, lowering his voice. Or maybe, he said, you're just mad because everyone saw that video of your dad getting knocked out. Jamal's fingers twitched. Yeah, man, I watched it last night, Marcus added, shaking his head like he was upset. That guy got hit more than a punching bag. Eric laughed. That's your family, huh? A bunch of punching bags. He smirked. No wonder you never fight back. It's in your blood. Laughter filled the hallway, the kind that hurt worse than fists. Jamal felt anger burning inside, but he didn't let it show. He stood tall, his face blank. His father's words echoed in his mind. Stay calm. Don't hesitate when the time comes. Jamal waited, letting them think they had won. Then, slowly, he turned his head and stared at Troy. You guys watch boxing now? His voice was cool, almost mocking. He looked at each of them one by one. Funny. I didn't think soft guys like you cared about real fights. The laughter died. Troy's smirk faded for a second before turning cold. Marcus' smile wavered. Eric frowned, confused. What did you just say? Troy snapped. Jamal shrugged, his tone easy. I said, you're soft. The words hung in the air, sharp, clear, like the first hit in a fight no one had started yet. Jamal could feel the tension, his challenge settling deep in their bones. Marcus let out a scoff, shaking his head. Oh, this guy thinks he's funny now. Eric cracked his knuckles. Nah, he thinks he's tough. Troy's jaw tightened. Then, slowly, he leaned forward, his voice low. You think we're weak? Jamal held his stare without blinking. Yeah. Troy took a sharp breath and stepped back, nodding to himself, his hands clenched into fists. All right, Carter. Let's see if you still think that when we're done with you. Eric grinned, rolling up his sleeves. Marcus stretched his fingers like a pianist preparing to play. Jamal's heartbeat steadied. His muscles felt loose, ready. He knew what was coming, but this time he wasn't waiting to be hit. This time, he was ready to finish it. Jamal barely dropped his bag before Eric charged at him, throwing a wild right hook aimed at his jaw. It was sloppy, driven by ego and brute force, the kind of punch that only worked on inexperienced kids. But Jamal wasn't just any kid. He had spent his whole life watching his father train fighters, learning every move like second nature. He saw the punch coming before Eric even fully swung, the shift in weight, the tense shoulder, a tiny tell most wouldn't notice. Jamal dodged left, letting the fist cut through empty air. The crowd gasped, but Jamal wasn't done. In the same motion, he twisted and drove a sharp counter into Eric's ribs. A heavy thud echoed. Eric's breath left him in a rush, his knees buckling. Jamal didn't wait. He turned, eyes locking onto Marcus, who was trying to sneak up from the side. Marcus swung wildly, but Jamal ducked, then surged forward with a quick uppercut to his stomach. Marcus choked, stumbling back, clutching his gut. Troy, watching with narrowed eyes, suddenly realized this wasn't going as planned. His usual game, picking on the weakest kid, humiliating him, had just backfired. Jamal wasn't just defending himself, he was dismantling them. Jamal faced Troy, rolling his shoulders. His stance was calm, natural. He wasn't reckless or angry, just controlled, precise, dangerous. Troy clenched his fists and stepped forward. All right, Carter. Let's see what you've really got. Troy was faster than the others, more confident, but confidence didn't win fights. Skill did. He threw a quick jab, testing Jamal's defense. Jamal tilted his head just enough to avoid it. Another jab, then a right cross. Jamal read every move. When Troy committed to a left hook, Jamal stepped in, catching his wrist mid-swing. Troy's eyes widened in shock. Before he could react, Jamal twisted, throwing him off balance, then landed a clean right to his cheekbone, not enough to break anything, but enough to send a message. Troy stumbled back, slamming into the lockers. For the first time, he wasn't the one standing over someone. He was the one on the ground. The hallway fell silent. Phones were out, recording. Whispers spread, shock replacing the usual mockery. Jamal Carter, the quiet kid they all underestimated, had just taken down the school's biggest bully. Eric, still hunched over, and Marcus, gasping for air, didn't move to help Troy. Jamal stepped closer, looking down at him. This was the moment his father had talked about. He could humiliate Troy now, just like Troy had done to others. But he didn't. He just stared at him, voice calm. I told you you're weak. Then he turned, grabbed his bag, and walked away. The silence behind him was heavy. Jamal didn't look back. He could feel their stares, the stunned whispers. Moments ago, they had been spectators to his suffering. Now, they had witnessed something else, a shift in power, a truth they couldn't ignore. Troy Parker, the unchallenged king of Southside High, was on the ground, and Jamal Carter had put him there. Jamal adjusted his bag on his shoulder, his heart still pounding. The rush of adrenaline hadn't faded yet, but he forced himself to stay calm. He didn't regret what he did, not for a second, but he knew this wasn't over. It never was. The bell rang, snapping the hallway back to life. Students started moving again, flowing around Jamal like water. Some gave him cautious looks, others whispered in shock. He caught bits of their words as he passed. "Did you see that?" He took down Troy like it was nothing. "I got the whole thing on video. Jamal can actually fight. I've never seen Troy lose before." Jamal ignored it all, pushing through the noise. His mind was already on what came next. There were always consequences. By the time he reached his next class, the principal's voice crackled over the speaker. "Jamal Carter, please report to the main office immediately." Jamal let out a slow breath. There it is. He didn't rush. He walked at his own pace, steps steady. He had expected this, had been ready for it since the moment he threw that first punch. Fighting back and winning always came with a price. When he walked into the office, Troy was already there, sitting in one of the chairs against the wall. His lip was split, a bruise forming on his cheek. He wasn't smirking now. His jaw was tight, hands clenched in his lap. He looked up when Jamal entered, their eyes locked, tense, silent. There was no pride in Troy's gaze now, only anger and something else, something close to fear. Principal Holloway sat behind her desk, hands folded. She was a middle-aged woman with sharp features and tired eyes, the kind that had seen too many fights, too many excuses. Beside her stood Officer Daniels, the school cop, arms crossed. His presence was a warning. Jamal knew how this looked, a black kid and a white kid in the office after a fight, one of them hurt, one of them not. "Sit down, Mr. Carter," Principal Holloway said, nodding to the chair beside Troy's. Jamal stayed standing. "Am I suspended?" Her expression didn't change. "You're being reviewed for discipline." Jamal took a slow breath. "For defending myself?" "For fighting," she corrected. Jamal glanced at Troy, who sat there like the victim, like he hadn't started it. Watch your tone," Officer Daniels cut in, voice hard. Jamal clenched his fists. He could argue. He could tell them everything, the months of bullying, the shoving, the stolen things, the insults. He could explain how they mocked his father, how they pushed him until he snapped. But would it matter? Would they care? He had seen how this went before. He wasn't stupid. Instead, he took a sharp breath and let it out. "Fine. What's the punishment?" Holloway watched him silently for a while, then looked at Troy. 3-day suspension, both of you." Troy turned to her quickly. "What? Why?" "You were both part of it," she said plainly. "The video proves it." Jamal froze. Video proof. Someone must have sent it to the school, maybe even multiple people. For the first time since entering the office, Jamal felt something surprising, justice. Troy stammered, losing his calm. "That's not fair." "This meeting is over," Holloway interrupted, standing. You're both dismissed. Troy jumped up and rushed out without another word. Jamal stayed for a moment, letting it sink in. This wasn't about winning or losing anymore. It was bigger. The video was out. People had seen the truth. When Jamal stepped into the hallway, he noticed the change instantly. The same students who used to ignore him now looked his way. Some nodded, some whispered, but none acted like he was invisible anymore. As for Troy, he was gone. For the first time in a long while, Jamal Carter walked through Southside High with confidence, not as a victim, but as someone they finally saw. By lunch, the fight was all anyone discussed. The video had spread fast, not just in school, but online. Clips were shared in chats, posted in feeds, and talked about in hushed voices by students who'd never even spoken to Jamal before. But it wasn't just the fight that got people talking. It was everything leading up to it, the months of teasing, the way Troy and his friends had picked on him for so long without consequences. Everyone saw it happening, but no one stepped in until now. For the first time, people weren't just watching. They were asking why it took so long. Why did it have to come to blows before anyone cared? By the next day, the school had to act. During the morning announcements, Principal Holloway's voice came through the speakers, sounding more serious than usual. Many of you know about the recent fight on school grounds. It has started important talks about bullying, harassment, and the kind of environment we allow here. The classrooms went quiet. Everyone knew what she meant. Southside High does not accept violence, but we also can't ignore what led to it. Many students feel ignored, unsafe, and forced to deal with things no one should face. That stops now. Jamal sat with his arms crossed, eyes locked on the speaker. He expected a warning about fighting, but this was different. Starting today, we're putting new rules in place to stop bullying. There will be a way to report problems without giving your name and stricter punishments. This isn't just about discipline. It's about making sure every student feels safe and respected. Jamal could feel the mood shift. Some kids looked uneasy. Others seemed deep in thought. A few still doubted. But they were all listening. Let me be clear. No one should feel like they have to fight to be heard. If we failed you, we'll do better. The announcement ended, but the effect stayed. The talk didn't die down. If anything, it grew louder. Kids who'd stayed quiet about being bullied started speaking up. Those who'd laughed or looked away realized their silence was part of the problem. The school's culture, one that let kids like Troy get away with everything, was finally being questioned. As Jamal walked the halls that day, he noticed something else. Troy wasn't smirking anymore. His usual swagger was gone, replaced by something shaky. His friends were pulling away, their loyalty breaking under the truth. For the first time, they were the ones being watched. And Jamal, he didn't need to throw another punch. He'd already won. That afternoon, as Jamal walked home, the cool fall air felt different, lighter. The anger, the frustration of being pushed around, was gone, not because the fight fixed everything, not because Troy and his crew vanished, but because for the first time, he stood up for himself, and the world finally saw him. When he entered his dad's gym, the smell of sweat and leather greeted him along with the sound of fists hitting bags. Raymond was wrapping his hands for his next session. But when he saw Jamal, he didn't need to ask what happened. he already knew. So, Raymond said, setting the wraps aside, you finally stood up for yourself. Jamal nodded. His father studied him, then pointed to the ring. Come here. Jamal sighed, dropping his bag. I just got out of a fight, old man. Raymond smirked. Jamal hesitated, then stepped into the ring. His father raised his fists. Jamal did the same. You did what you had to do, Raymond said. But a real fighter keeps moving forward. Jamal threw the first punch, sharp and clean. Raymond nodded in approval. Jamal wasn't just fighting anymore. He was becoming stronger. Join us to share meaningful stories by liking and subscribing to Black Struggles. Don't forget to turn on notifications to start your day with important lessons in kindness.